Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Abby and I'm a homeschooling mom of 5 kids. I have a 2-year-old all the way up through a 16-year-old now. This just in, I have a 16-year-old now as of last month. And today is one of the last videos of this school year in my Homeschool Show and Tell collaboration with Jessica Waldock from the Waldock Way. Every month we share or tell, show or tell on a different homeschool topic and invite anybody who has a YouTube channel to join us as well in sharing on that topic. The information if you want to be added to this month's playlist is in the description box down below, so make sure you check that out. This month our topic is mother culture, so how you continue to grow in your own education and domestic art or interests as a homeschooling mom. And I'm really excited to share on this topic because I think that we can think as homeschoolers that our time is too limited to do any personal development or personal growth. And I want to encourage you all today in how homeschooling can be the reason that we're continuing to grow and learn and invest our time wisely. So before I share my thoughts on this subject, I wanted to give a thank you to today's video partner. If you have been around here for a while, then this is not anything new to you, but a good reminder as we approach summertime with our kids. We have really loved Zookeeper here in our home for years. My older ones used it. Now I've got my middle kids using it. They've kind of grown into it as my other ones have aged out of it. And we have been big, longtime fans. So I'm gonna share a little bit about Zookeeper, and there is also a discount code in the description box down below. And then we're gonna chat mother culture. Zookeeper is an award-winning reading and writing program for kids that my kids have loved for a long time. It helps improve their spelling, grammar, punctuation, and vocabulary skills, and something that I really love is the personalized feedback on their writing. The games are probably their favorite part. The fun word games improve their spelling and build vocabulary. The engaging challenges develop their grammar and sentence structure skills, and of course, the inspiring writing prompts and lessons spark their imagination as they keep their own night zoo. So if you guys are looking for a great way to keep your kids engaged and having fun while also learning, make sure you check out the info on Zookeeper in my description box down below. Using my link, you'll receive a 7-day free trial and over 50% off the annual subscription. We have enjoyed Zookeeper for years, as I already stated. My older ones used it when they were at the right age, and now my younger ones are using it and they have the best time. It's such a great reward for them at the end of a school day or on the weekends to hop on and do some Zookeeper. It's been a great way for them to have fun and enjoy some tablet time or computer time while also getting some great feedback and learning some new skills. So thank you so much, Zookeeper. Make sure you guys check that out in the description box down below. Thank you so much, Zookeeper, for partnering with me on today's video. Make sure you guys check that out in the description box down below. If you want some fun but educational assistance this summer, I highly encourage and recommend Zookeeper. It's a really exciting thing for my kids to get to do at the end of a school day or on the weekends. It's been a fun way for them to stay engaged but learn in a creative and exciting way. So make sure you check that out. All right, so I did write down a lot of notes, and I hate when I am like glancing at notes while I share with you all, but I wanted to make sure that I got through these thoughts in a clear and concise way. So I apologize in advance that my forehead is going to be the shining star of today's video. But yes, so starting, so first things first, as I mentioned earlier, our time as homeschooling moms is sparse. Like we've got a lot going on. There's very little downtime. If you're looking through the lens of feeling like kind of a victim to your circumstances as a homeschooling mom, you see other women who are able to go to lunch and enjoy plays and time with their girlfriends, or reading their Bible at the beach while their kids are in school. That's my big one. If you post that, I'm like, ugh, because we do live at the beach and it's like right within reach, but I can't go as often as I would if my kids were in school. And so when you see these things, you can feel like I just won't be able to read and finish a book, or I'll never be able to finish a podcast series because there's always little ears listening, or you know, we can think that our own time or ability to stay engaged and educated and pursue our own interests and hobbies is incredibly limited. But I would argue, this now coming from, let's see, my oldest is going into 11th grade next year. So we've been homeschooling all the way through, from preschool all the way through. I don't even know how many years, maybe we're in our 13th year or so, 14, I don't know, if you count preschool, then we are. But you know, as I've been going through this homeschooling journey, I can look back and actually measure my own growth and see that my own interests, maybe the interests I personally had before my kids were born, aren't the same interests, but because of homeschooling and through homeschooling, I've been able to continue to grow and cultivate different desires and learn so much and feel like I have had my own rich educational experience through homeschooling and because of homeschooling. So not necessarily all sitting down at the table type of learning, but things that pique my interest as I'm teaching my kids, or relationships I've formed with other homeschoolers or other Christian women that have really challenged me that I've met through homeschooling, or even just the fact that I have limited time and I have to use that time wisely. I've invested it in places that really matter to me. So because of homeschooling, I would say I've had a better personal experience with continuing my education and continuing to challenge myself than I might have otherwise. So perspective is key, obviously, in all of this, but that's my take on my own mother culture experience. So I would say that I filter education or mother culture through 4 different categories. I'm either learning something, I'm growing in something that I might already have familiarity with, or I'm refreshing or reminding myself of something, or there's entertainment. I'm entertaining myself. And really there's no neutral time. There's no neutral time in life. There's no neutral time if you're in the car, there's no neutral conversation, and there's no neutral thoughts. We have to use our effort and our time wisely. If we're in the car for 10 minutes, we can be listening to something that's either uplifting, that's gonna like refresh our soul or our spirit, right? We can listen to some good music, or we can listen to a podcast or a sermon or a Bible reading plan that's encouraging us. There's no neutral conversation. We're either in a conversation with somebody who we're learning from or we're inspired by, or we're going into a conversation guarded or shut down. And so there's no neutrality there. We have to recognize that even our conversations and relationships with people are part of our mother culture. If I'm going into a conversation with a friend, I have to be very careful to be willing to learn and ask questions from them. If I'm going into a conversation with people that I barely know and I want to be prepared for that conversation, say I'm going to, one example is when I started at the dance studio that we're at, before I knew all the moms really well, I had to go in mentally prepared to engage and be willing to be a light in that space. You know, maybe there were not going to be any Christians there, so I needed to equip myself to go into those conversations. There's nothing neutral about that. Or there's not even a neutral thought, right? Neutrality doesn't exist. You're either growing and learning and spiritually being fed or feeding others, or you are, I guess, discouraging those things as well. I think that if I let my thoughts run away, I could be in a very bad place by the end of the day, versus if I use every ounce of time and invest even my thought life in a positive way. So you have to care. I wish I could go back and tell my 20-something-year-old self this, when I thought that in order to grow as a woman, I had to have the time. I really had to care. The effort it takes to grow is so much more valuable than the time you have to grow. So you have to care. It takes effort and sacrifice to learn, to be challenged, and to master something. You have to have mentors, you have to have goals, and you have to stop making excuses. I would say that when my kids were all younger, I thought, well, I can't read that book, or I can't, spend time Bible journaling, or I can't even school plan well because all my kids are young and they all need me and I'm being pulled in 1,000 directions. And yes, that was absolutely true. But I laugh so many times thinking about that stage in life, because as of right now, I have teenagers, and in the same way, I can't read that book or do that Bible journaling or spend a good amount of time with my home organization or school planning, because they also need me in a different way. My days are longer with teenagers. I still have young ones, so they start as early as they always did, but they end much later because kids love to chat in the evenings. I love being available to them. Their activities run longer. Their friends are over. So many more things continue past, say, 8 p.m. when I used to be able to shut life down when my kids were all young. And so really what matters and what has changed, even though the demand on my own life is probably stronger right now, my effort and my desire to grow and learn and be challenged has grown. And because of that, I'm probably learning more and listening to more and putting in more effort now than I did when all of my kids were very little. But you have to have goals. You have to have mentors. You have to be looking at women who you want to learn from and who inspire you. Really, we can't just be left to ourselves. We are not people who were created to be isolated. So we're supposed to be wanting to grow towards something, and we should also be looking at who's watching us and want to be stand-up women for those ladies who are younger than us or in a different season of life than us, who are maybe wanting to follow behind us as we follow behind other really honorable women. What did I have here? Oh, back to the there's no neutral time idea. I did miss this note. Even when you're doing laundry or you're cooking or you're driving, as I mentioned, those are the areas where I probably have the most time. That is my blank canvas. When I'm doing laundry or dishes or I'm cooking, so long as I have everything in order, right? I don't want to idolize listening to a great podcast over a connection opportunity with one of my kids who want to be in the kitchen with me. But most often they're all doing their own thing. Everyone sees me doing dishes and nobody's coming around, right? They're all making sure that mom's handling that, let's all stay in the other room. And so that's a great time to listen to something or be encouraged by something or spend time in prayer, because that's also a really important thing to recognize, is that your thought life is a great blank canvas for your prayer life. And so I'm often the first one to volunteer for outside chores. Like if I notice that the pool needs to be scrubbed down, a lot of times I'll tell my boys to do that. Hey boys, why don't you guys go grab the pool brush for me? But sometimes if it's been a busy day and I haven't had a moment to feel refreshed or encouraged, I'm like, you know what? I'll throw an AirPod in and I'm gonna go scrub the pool for 10 minutes, and that's a great opportunity. My thoughts toward driving have been radically transformed. 2 years ago, I looked at my kids' schedule and I was like, there is no margin for mom. Like, this looks like a lot of time in the car, and I knew it was kind of like a pinch year. And I probably, if you go back in old videos, I know I would have talked about it. Like, it was a year that I knew I was gonna be pressed, but it was gonna be the only year, kind of like where my one kid was aging out of a group and my other one was aging in. We had to sort of pay our dues with getting the short end of the stick with the schedule, with the JV schedule when I knew they were almost on varsity, or with the dance team schedule when I knew that if we just, you know, stuck it out this year, we'd get to a better schedule for the rest of the foreseeable future. And so there have been, that year I was like, man, this is gonna be really tough. And I cannot tell you how much I despised at that point in time being in the car. I know I live in a tropical paradise, but the car is the worst place to be in Florida, and everything is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And so it's like it was the hottest point in the day to be in the car. It's, you know, my younger ones are always wanting to fall asleep in the car and I'm wanting to keep them awake. I'm just always so thirsty at that time of day in the heat. And that's the point where for about an hour and a half, almost every day that particular year, I was driving around. And so I thought, okay, Lord, I have got to you've got to help me out of this situation and show me which of these things are not important so we can drop the schedule a little bit, or I need my heart to be encouraged in this time instead of letting this time be kind of the gateway to a horrible evening and a bad attitude for me, because that really was my go-to spirit. Like if we had to be in the car for an hour at 3, then you may as well just assume that mom's gonna be in a mood for the rest of the evening. Dinner's gonna be short and sweet, because who has the energy after a long afternoon to come home and do things well? So I was like, okay, God, this is going to be my chance to be encouraged. It's gonna be mom's time, I'm gonna grow. So I created I romanticized it and I sold it to myself. Okay, Abby, every day at 3, you get to have your sparkling water or your kombucha or your Olipop, and you get to listen to a book you've been wanting to listen to, or a sermon series that you wanted to catch up on, or something of the likes. And I sold it to myself, and I really tricked myself, because I started to crave that time every day. That was now the time that I had reserved to be encouraged, to grow, to be refreshed. And so many amazing dinner time conversations between my husband and I would come up and came out of that time, because I used that time in the car wisely. I was in a more refreshed space by the time we came to dinner, and I had thoughts to contribute besides just having my brain rocked all day by children. I now had new thoughts, new ideas, an encouraging outlook on the day. And a lot of times I ask my husband all the time, like, is there anything you're listening to that you think I would like, or anything like that? And a lot of times I'll save that for my car time. Our schedule, as I predicted 2 years ago, is so much better because we made it through that year, and the kids kind of got to all the goals they were setting, they got there. We also have a driver and an almost driver now in the house, so things are getting a little easier in that sense as well. But I now, oddly enough, look forward to that time in the car when I used to just hate it. And so that time, whether it's 10 minutes to the dance studio and back, or whether I'm going and sitting and waiting to pick someone up, or a lot of times I'll have like one kid needs to be dropped off, but then 30 minutes later another one needs to be picked up. So instead of going home, I'll just go park in a shady spot in one of the places and wait. And so I actually look forward to that time now, and I've found a lot of encouragement through that time in the car as well. So laundry, cooking, driving, house chores, as long as you're not sacrificing relationship with your own children and families to spend time listening, or not necessarily reading, because I can't really read while I'm doing those things, but I have an Alexa. I can always throw on some encouraging music, or I can listen to the lecture from my women's Bible study. Maybe I was zoning out on. I tend to zone out during lecture time, so I can re-listen to that, re-listen to the sermon, catch the bits I missed while I was walking my toddler out into the lobby 3 times, or just hearing a good podcast or a good Bible reading recap type of thing. Another thought on cultivating our own mother culture and setting goals and having desires to grow and learn. And this one, really, I wish this would have been something settled in my heart a long time ago. I'm not sure what it was, but I'm sure I'm not the only one who maybe was trying to prove themselves as a young married woman. But and that's just to not let jealousy or excuses steer you from good friends, aspirations, or from mentors and teachers. And I think I really recognize it now, because I am now at an age where there are younger women who might have more wisdom than me in a certain area, who might be a better baker, or might have some homemaking tips that, you know, this younger generation knows that weren't readily available when I first got married, and we didn't have as much social media or you know, YouTube shorts. You can get a lot of information through YouTube shorts now, and a lot of times those are younger women or people who maybe it's like their niche, like it's like I'm doing sourdough now and I have for a few years, but it's my hobby, not my passion. Well, sometimes there's people who have it as their passion and they've got some amazing ideas to share, but they're younger, or you know, there's just something that's holding you back in judgment maybe on why they are or are not a valid mentor in that area. And I think that we can just be so protective or defensive about letting our guard down and learning from people. I was timing out on me there. That jealousy or that desire to protect ourselves really limits us from being able to learn and grow and be inspired. And I think that my biggest inspiration in my own homemaking and my homeschooling and my just in being a wife or a student of the Bible, all my best inspiration comes from my friendships and relationships and women that I can look at. Even here online when people are like, oh, you're such a godsend, I don't know how you do it, I don't know how you get content out or how you have the time to do X, Y, or Z. And for me, that's a compliment, not for who I am, but it shows that my circle of friends has really helped carry that load for me. I'm so inspired and so encouraged by my friends. I wish you could meet them all. They feed me, and then I can in turn then, you know, make a video on something and using their wisdom and the experiences and what I've learned from these other women who are a few years ahead of me in marriage, or women who I sit with them and watch them parent as I parent, and all of that has you know, grown me into who I am and given me a desire to share with other women. And so if I had held myself back or thought, well, it's easier for her to homeschool, she's got a beautiful homeschooling space, or it's easier for her to cook these beautiful meals for her family because she has a great kitchen. If I thought those things and then didn't allow myself to learn from them because I excused away why they could grow, but I didn't have to be challenged by that, then I would have missed out on so much growth that the Lord had for me. So yeah, you can't get from point A to point B in growth and in education and in your art. Domestic art is kind of like my favorite thing to learn. If I'm listening to a podcast or reading a book and really trying to grow, it most of the time has to do with baking or homemaking or parenting or homeschooling. So you can't get from point A to point B just based on your human nature and your personality type. Those things will certainly help you. If you are like, you know, I hear people say all the time, I'm not ADHD, so I can't speak to this, but I hear women say, oh, I have ADHD, that's why I'm a great business owner. I can spin 6 plates at once and I thrive in that. I would crumble under that, but my personality type is to be very orderly and organized, and I thrive in that setting. And so in that sense, that helps me along, right? But I can't just base my growth on my personality or my human nature. And in the same way, I can't just say, well, they're a better mom than me because they're more patient naturally. No, we can't get from point A to point B or excuse it away just based on personality type. Where you look is where you'll grow. So you have to have inspiration and mentors, and you have to be willing to see past yourself and recognize that there are people who are smarter and wiser and kinder and more studied than you, and you have to be looking in that direction so that you can grow. And you have to cultivate your affections by setting your sights on something and then growing in that way. I did put a note here. What did I write here? I do have when I am excited to film a video, I will write something quickly, and half the time I'm like, whoa, Abby, you needed to calm down, because I cannot, Abby 2 hours later cannot read that handwriting. Oh, a note for the younger moms who only maybe have toddlers at the moment, or you've got babies and you're gonna be in that season for a while now. I have loved the stage I'm in much more. It has truly been more enjoyable than my very early parenting years. Those were challenging in many ways, And kind of that idea of mother culture then, I just wanted to encourage you guys, if you happen to be young or mid-20s and you're listening to this and you're like, I cannot be listening to things all day long, and I don't have time to sit and have coffee with women on a regular basis. I get it. I've been there too. So every mom has to go through that season, right? It reminds me of a time I was just talking to a girlfriend yesterday. We were chatting about how much more enjoyable it can be to be married for 15 years than 5. And it's because in those early days of marriage, you're investing constantly financially. You've got little financial freedom that you might find later on because, okay, you're married, but you have to buy a toaster now, and maybe you have like melamine plates, but you'd really like a nice set of dinnerware, or you got a hand mixer, but you want to get a stand mixer. And so every paycheck or every bit of time you have is going toward building your home, physically getting better furniture than you started with when you first got married, or you know, all of those things, right? I remember like I've spent so much time on Tupperware and towels, like good quality Tupperware and good towels when I first got married. All of my thoughts were going toward that. And so all of our finances were going, extra finances were going toward building my kitchen, building my home. Then you start having kids and they're all going toward that. But then you get kind of to the flip side of that. Maybe you've been married 10 years now, 15 years now. You have all the things you need to function and to feed and nourish a family. And now you've got so much more financial freedom because you spent all those years building that up. Mother culture is so much that same way. You're kind of, it's like building a plane while it's in the air, right? You're flying the plane, you've got these kids, you want to grow so that you can then in turn give back to your own family. You want to be a better baker or more studied in scripture so that you can then raise your kids in the wisdom and admonition of the Lord, and you're wanting to grow so that you can give, and it's a big learning curve and it's a lot of effort. But then maybe you get 10, 15 years down the road from that point and you've got good routines. It's like the back of your hand to listen to something while you're doing dishes. You've got these little habits that you formed. It does get easier in that sense. So I do wish I could have let myself off the hook a little bit, maybe 10 years ago, where I was constantly like, how do I get to that point? I want to get to that point. And I was striving and I was exhausting myself. The little bits do add up over time, and it just becomes so much easier to learn a new skill or a new craft or a new hobby or a new recipe when you've got the basics down. But do give yourself grace and enjoy and appreciate the season of just getting the basics down, getting time in the Word, and time to sing worship music with your little kids might be what you have and the time and the resources that you do have to grow in your own mother culture right now. But just continue, don't give up, don't think it has to be all or nothing. Eventually you will grow into a season where it's easier to have that time and make that effort, especially when it starts paying dividends, right? You start to see, oh, well, it is so much easier to bake my own bread now than it is to run to Publix and grab a loaf. It is so much easier to use self-control now that I've done countless Bible studies on patience and grace, right? Now it is easier. So now I can grow in this area because that is a familiar theme to me now. So just appreciate that season. It does get better. You will be able to grow more, you'll be more settled. You'll be able to grow artistically instead of just being in more of a survival mode growth mindset. All right. So in a practical way, let's talk a little bit more practically now. All right, so what did I write here? I said I have some main areas of focus in my own education and mother culture, kind of some areas that I'm usually focused on. If I'm gonna listen to a sermon or a podcast or pick up a book, it's usually in one of these areas. Spiritual growth is one, domestic arts is another, as I mentioned a few times. Some personal growth or things that are just life-giving to me personally would be fitness. It's something that I've always needed to have in my life. Travel, it's a huge part of mine and my husband, what gives us life and where we direct our free time. As much as I don't share political opinions on here, I love political debates. I love them. I grew up in Chicago, and then I spent a good bit of time, maybe 4 years, living in Miami, and then I moved to a very quiet, very conservative Florida, Florida beach town, retirement town. So totally different experiences. I did go to a very conservative church growing up in the midst of living in Chicago and Miami. So I love hearing differing opinions. I love a good logical political debate. I love a good healthy debate. I will say that when I have long days, sometimes John will come in the room and just click the TV off and be like, you need to rest your brain, because I'll get all like into it, and sometimes it's not really healthy for me to be like engaged in that intense level at the end of a day. But he knows too, to turn on some political commentary at the end of a day might also settle me. And so I love that. So spiritual growth, domestic arts, and then any life-giving or personal areas of growth, fitness, travel, politics, are all generally the direction I'm going when I'm looking to hear or listen to or read something. However, any of those things on their own, if I put too much effort into that, could be a runaway train. If I'm only listening to sermons all day, every day, I can imagine that would put things out of balance or kind of keep me out of touch with my own needs in my home that day. If I'm only listening to that, then it might not be, I might not be growing in another area. If I'm only focused on baking, cooking, whatever, and I have the spiritual side of it completely disconnected, that's also like a runaway train in its own sense. And if I'm only focusing on things that feed me personally, fitness goals and aspirations and hobbies and career, goals or things that I'm interested in doing, professional goals, or only, of course, consuming political things, that would also not be good. That would actually separate me off from the people that I want to be learning in order to nurture and encourage. But I will say that even proper entertainment serves a purpose. And that protects me from overloads, so that I'm available emotionally. So I spent, there was a time, and I even shared here online, and I'm willing to walk it back a little bit and say it was a little much. And wisdom has set in, and I don't do that anymore for a reason. I had my own 𝐒𝐸 basket, and I had a bunch of books in there and things that I wanted to be reading. It grew in my own heart to where, not that I idolized that, but I felt like anytime I had free time, I should have been growing. I should have been learning. I should have been, consuming things that were teaching me. I was always wanting to be taught. What that does for me personally, and I'm sure for many of you, is that doesn't allow you, if you're consuming too much information, there is that whole idea of the information doubling curve. I think it's in The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry that I heard that book by John Mark Comer. If you are just getting information, it is exhausting, and you are then not available to the people who need you, and you are not meeting needs and seeing, you're not able to even not just absorb emotions, but properly assess your kids' needs. And sometimes your kids come to you with a big fit, and if you have just been consuming info all day, I will guarantee that you are not going to assess that need and absorb that kid's emotions very well. It's going to be met with a little bit of resistance if you're also feeling a little stretched. And so I try to not stretch myself too thin, and I think that entertainment for someone like me whose brain doesn't rest often, and who doesn't desire, I don't really desire mindless television or scrolling social media or just kind of vegging out. It's not something that I love to do, and I'm not saying that makes me a better person. It actually can keep me from being very warm because I don't settle down. So because I don't in a sense, I probably have a little bit of a fear of entertainment having its proper place, because that would feel like I'm wasting time, and I like to be productive, but it doesn't waste time. If you have proper entertainment, maybe something that's wholesome and actually makes you laugh or makes you feel refreshed, a book that's just encouraging or inspiring and not educational, a good story you want to get wrapped up in, or a TV show or documentary that just really floats your boat, like that can have a really good place in your life in settling you, in making you laugh, and keeping you warm. And so just a note on that as well, I would not say that entertainment is a waste of time as far as your own personal educational journey or mother culture, because I do think it has its proper place. But a note on the education, or on the entertainment, and how I have brought it into the fold intentionally in my life, is I keep my entertainment geared toward my interests or places that I am trying to learn in. So you can curate your social media. I mean, I would encourage you to regularly go through and see how many people you're following or what types of accounts you're following, because that is when I would say that you're most vulnerable to something mindless. And like I said earlier, nothing's neutral. You're always learning, or you're always going in one direction or another. And so sometimes there's like social media accounts that are not good for you at this point, but maybe you were interested in at one point, but now it's just noise, right? You know, shopping accounts for me, I used to follow different, you know, life hack accounts, or just things that were really beneficial at one time or were interesting to me at one time, but now it's just like makes me feel exhausted to even see those things. Or parenting. I mean, just as I've had different parenting philosophies over the year, personal parenting philosophies, I follow different pages, and now I realize that as I'm scrolling social media and hearing and reading these things, they're affecting my mind, my heart. And so if I disagree with that, or that's something that my husband and I no longer feel is a goal or a direction we're headed, I'll unfollow those accounts so that it's not just seeping in through the cracks, so to speak. So you can curate your social media if you really like to cook, and you really like to, so I love to watch people make coffee on social media. I love coffee. I don't make coffee, but it's something that's refreshing to watch it happen. Makes me a little inspired for the next cafe order I make. I'm not personally going to be making it, but it's just something that's maybe more of my interest, or different sourdough accounts like I mentioned earlier, or just fun organizational accounts, organizing spaces, or holiday decorating accounts. Things like that are really encouraging for me. Tea Time magazine, I love following Tea Time magazine because it's like I can see different tea treats and you know, sugar cubes and things that are just like, oh, it's entertainment to me, but it's kind of in the direction I want to be entertained in. I'm even really careful about what I film. I used to put so much more content out years ago, but as I became more acutely aware of its effect on me, I wanted to honor what I felt like the Lord was teaching me through wasteful content, and not be promoting that out toward other homeschooling moms as well. So even that has affected, you know, the value I see in what I share. And so one of the things that you can do is you can just make sure that besides what you're following on social media, but the apps that you put on your phone, or the books that you have, you know, sitting in your bathroom, sitting on your bedside table, if you keep a book in the car for moments like football practice always runs late for my kids, supposed to end at 6, it always ends at 6:30. So books you keep in your car so you can just pick up and read, you know, just creating some options that are easily accessible so that mindlessness doesn't catch you off guard. So then on cultivating interests, like I said, homeschooling and homemaking are a priority for me at the moment and for the season that I'm in. So for homeschooling, you know, I'm very inspired by the missionary biographies my kids are reading, so I'm reading things like that. For homemaking, I've I've milled our own wheat since my oldest was a toddler, and I learned sourdough a few years ago. So right now I'm trying to figure out that balance of using the fresh wheat for the sourdough. So that's kind of an area of challenge for me where I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm being challenged. In homeschool, I've added in handcrafts over the years, and I've added in different books. My kids were not interested in learning about birds, but you know who wanted to learn about birds was me. So that's why last year we did that bird study. They learned a lot. It was a great year of science for us. But I also was really interested because every morning when I'm doing my Bible study on my patio, I've been hearing these birds for years and noticing the patterns of when certain birds are there and which ones are return each year with another bird and which ones are little loner birds. And so, you know, we did the bird book for me, really. Certain handcrafts, as I mentioned, I try to mix it up with things I know my kids are gonna be interested in. But I also add in every couple years, the watercolor was more for me personally. Ooh, sorry, my kids were in and out of the pool this afternoon, so there's a fly in the house right now. But the watercolor was one that was more for me, but the kids loved it. We're doing whittling this year, and I don't love it, but I did it for them. They were really interested, but I really wanted to learn embroidery, so we're gonna head there next. And just things like that, like working those things in. Different books that we read aloud were books that I've heard were great books. Some of the classics I never personally read. I never read the Narnia series. We had them in my house growing up, and I heard about the Narnia series. I could probably have repeated most of it to you, but I never personally read it. So this year I wanted to read it to my kids. So some of the classics I had never even read, and so those have worked their way into our education. And so just homeschooling, homemaking, those are the catalyst for a lot of my own personal learning. But there was a time when pregnancy or books on marriage or Bible studies on these topics took priority. And then I like to also leave room for what my husband's interests are. He's a big Florida history guy. Wasn't necessarily a big thing in my mind, but I want to go places with him, and I want to be excited about things with him too. So things like that I'm learning as well. The Book of Land Remembered is kind of from my area, so we have a little museum about it nearby. We went to Flagler College and did a whole tour on some of the old Florida history. And so it is a benefit to learn about the things that your spouse loves or your teenagers love, because then it gives opportunity to connect and to do things together and to stay fun, and so to say that as well. And then if I have one more thought here on making time for learning and for growing and for educating and reading and just continuing to develop as a person. If I've had a couple of reasons why I've been stunted in my own growth, other than like having babies or toddlers who are very demanding on the time, it's a lack of boundaries personally, or it's my own pride that has gotten in the way. I think there's a healthy way, especially when it comes to Bible time, once your kids are at a certain age, to say, you know, I'm not gonna spend 2 hours, I'm not gonna make my kids starving and waiting for breakfast while I spend 2 hours doing my Bible study, but there's an appropriate amount of time and you know, that my kids can see I'm at the table. When I'm at the table, if my Bible's open, if dad isn't able to be, if he had to leave for work early and I didn't get my Bible time in, you know, if you see mommy sitting here with the Bible, just unless it's something really important, just maybe don't interrupt that time. Or if you want to chat, maybe instead of walking right up to me and saying, Mom, Mommy, just stand nearby. And as soon as I finish the passage I'm reading, I'll ask you what you need. And so a lot of times I don't have good personal boundaries to even see that what I'm doing is valuable, and I need to teach my children to give me that time. I need to teach my kids that, you know, when I'm in the middle of something, or if I'm doing something, that sometimes that is important, not for our whole family, not just for me. I'm not just doing something for fun. I'm also learning. I'm also a human. I also want to enjoy these things and these experiences. Or pride, which was probably my biggest issue when I first became a mom. And that was just I was just off balance with knowing what it meant. I was a very self-sufficient person. I have a story, right? Everyone's got a story. I had a story of why I was very self-protective. I was adopted, but actually not fully. The adoption was never finalized. And so at any point I could have gone back or forth, depending. And so I was very aware of feeling at risk at all points in time. I never wanted to make anyone mad. I never wanted to be sent back or taken in the middle of the night, just kind of a lot of fears there. And so I wanted, when I got married, it's just crazy because it's like, this man, John, loves me. He wants me to rest. He wants me to have things that I enjoy, but I was so robotic, like I did not need to waste our school time and go to a Bible study. I can do my Bible time on my own. And it's like, no, you're not gonna grow that way anyway. And also, what are you trying to prove? Nobody's asking that of you. So that like pride or fear or sense of like self was so heightened that I wouldn't even want to go to a women's Bible study because I would want to prove that I didn't need that. I could be a good Christian. I watch my self-control. I can be such a good disciplined Christian. And so it's like, no, I've spent 17 years almost either pregnant or with a toddler or an infant or both or all three. And so yeah, it's really good to have help and to have a Bible study, or to need a mother's helper to come to the house, you can have a moment, or to have a babysitter, or to have some time set aside where you ask for that time. And so it took me way too long to learn that. So that's always been the thing that's kind of hindered my personal growth, is thinking I need to just be all things at all time, and I can just deny myself, deny my needs to the point of just mental exhaustion, which is so unhealthy. So one way that I do that is I have, like I said, I have a Bible study I attend. Yes, I do my own Bible time during the week. They can both be true. You can attend a Bible study and also do your own Bible study. But that's been really helpful for me to have that weekly thing on my calendar, so that I have to do my homework and I have to get there. And there are some weeks where if nothing else, I've at least done that. But I also have space in our schedule 1 day a week that I call professional development. John and I joke about it. It's my office hours. Usually it's on a Saturday, but depending on kids' schedules, that can change. But he always makes sure to give me that time. And that is a time where I set aside, if it's good weather, I'm usually out by the pool. I've got like an Olipop. I've got my AirPods in. I've got a book in my hands. I've got a notebook, and I'm either listening to something good or I'm learning about something that I want to do. Like my kids have been wanting to do this container gardening. So have I, actually, if you can believe that, and as much as I'm not a gardener. So I'm like, it's gonna take some effort to learn this. So on those days where I have that time, that's when I have the mental effort to learn something. It really fries my brain sometimes, but it's my professional development time. I can go get some school planning done. I can get some fresh inspiration. I can listen to an old Sonia Schaefer video that I have, or I can just hear something good and refreshing. And I have a whole chunk of time set aside where I know that my husband has the kids, and it's also, I'm not wasting his time, because I used to feel like, oh, I'm wasting your time. I should be able to manage this during the week. And no, he sees the value in it. He wants to give me that time, because in turn, it's the reward is that I can then pour more into my family. So having good boundaries where you're asking just for a little respect from the little people in your life to be able to do the things you need to do, but then also not being so proud that you can't ask for help in order to feed your humanity. You're a human, right? You need to have a little time to be inspired, and it's not going to help anyone in your house if you are burnt out and robotic and not finding fresh inspiration or new thoughts or ideas. So those are my thoughts on mother culture. This was such a long video. I am really sorry. But a last thought here is time is our most valuable currency. So get a vision and invest your time wisely, because yeah, what you're investing in now, your own mother culture, your own education, yes, it's for the season you're in now, but it should also continue on past this. when your kids grow out of the house, when you have grandkids, or when you serve your church, or when you are inspiring other homeschooling moms one day, you're also making really good bread, and you've got a lot of wisdom, and you've been trained up in the Bible, and you were encouraged and grew because of the things that you're investing your time in now. So use that time wisely, invest it wisely, and yeah, don't waste that gift, the little pockets of time we have, or the little bits of inspiration that our brains are craving. Don't waste that. Use it well, and use it toward what feeds your soul and what's going to nourish your family. And just remember that it doesn't have to look the exact same way. What you see on social media, what you're hearing from other moms, even in this playlist of how to properly educate yourself and continue growing your own education, it's so personal, it's so individual. And it will then in turn, what you're spending your time doing will then in turn bless your family. So make sure you check out the playlist to see what other moms' thoughts are in this show and tell topic of mother culture. And thank you guys for hanging with me for a long chatty video. I feel like we were overdue for a nice long chat, right? It's been a while. And thank you so much, Night Zookeeper, for partnering with me on today's video. If you want to give your kids something good to do while you can go listen or read or be inspired by something, Night Zookeeper is a great option this summer. Thank you guys, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.